Thank you. So what a privilege to be able to work with CRAN, and what a progressive organization, right? You're really making a difference in people's lives. And I also love presenting to this particular group. People are willing to show up on a Sunday afternoon to learn how to empower themselves and really make a difference in their journey. I want to offer you something that's very practical so that you can walk away from this presentation and feel like, oh, I've got something that can actually make a difference in my health and my happiness. So this is going to be the very practical presentation, in addition to explaining what the CancerPEP program is. People change under 3 circumstances. I'm talking about a positive behavior change. One, they have an epiphany. And I suspect that more of you on this presentation, because it's more rare that people have an epiphany and then they kind of wake up and they go, okay, that's what I need to do. Like I need to take my vitamin D, I'm just going to do it. I need to strength train, I'm just going to do it. But I'm hoping that I'm going to present this to you. You'll have that epiphany and you'll integrate these ideas into your life, like trying to really minimize ultra-processed foods, time restrict eat, meaning you're not eating overnight, standing up 5 minutes on the hour. So some practical things that you can integrate starting today that's actually going to really help your health and recovery, hopefully. So the second way that people change is if they change their environments. For instance, if you change cities or apartments, for instance, it's a real opportunity. I mean, a cancer diagnosis as well as an opportunity. And the third one is actually through what I call baby steps, healthy habits. And there's a whole science of how to change your behavior, and that's also part of the PEP program. But I'm hoping you're going to walk away something very practical today itself. So I'll talk about the Cancer Patient Empowerment Program, and then sedentarism, which means sitting too much, ultra-processed foods and why those aren't good for our gut health and the rest of our health, time-restricted eating. We'll share a bit of the trials results and talk about the CRAN PEP program, the CRC PEP program. So you get a feel for practical ways that you can feel stronger. So for instance, a person told an amazing story of going in for a lung surgery. So colon cancer had spread to a spot in the lung, and the physicians had gone in and actually removed that little bit of cancer and a little bit of the lung. And that person got out of the hospital in just 2 days. And they did it partly because they were in good shape. They were taking care of themselves physically and mentally, getting stronger going into the operation, or going stronger going into your chemotherapy can really help you get through it. So you can learn about the program. So I first of all, I just point you to the CancerPEP website, which gives a really good explanation and overview. And partly I'm showing you this video because on the website is a 10-minute video that really overviews the program, explains the rationale, the science, the practicality of all that stuff. So, and the other thing is, and although in the CRAN program, you'll go to a CRAN website and get a coupon to do the program for free, anybody could go to the CancerPEP website and sign themselves up by filling out the contact form there as well. So that's it. So as an overview, we're very comprehensive. We want to be able to say these are the kind of 6 pillars or more that you can do that actually is going to allow your body to get stronger physically, mentally, decrease your stress levels, allow your natural capacity to recover come through more easily. So we're drawing on all the science and putting this into a package. And the other thing that I liked hearing about is that you don't have to do this perfectly. You do it in the way that fits into your busy life and the way that really works for you. So the backbone of the program is 182 daily emails, and with each email is a daily video um, that's about 5 minutes long, and it's from our essentially from our kitchen here. You can actually see the background is similar to the background in the video right now, but and we talk about it and we try to model it and demonstrate and prescribe and share the science and some of the stories around it. So there's the daily video on the one side. And then the other thing is the email itself has the aspects of the program that we want you to practice each day if that fits in your life. So there's the dietary, the connection, the aerobic exercise, et cetera, et cetera. So there's these little clips every day. You get to get to know us as people every day, in addition to the monthly video conferences. So as you would imagine, anything that's known to decrease the risk of you getting your particular type of cancer, so exercise, aerobic exercise, on average decreases the risk of any colorectal cancer. If that's true, then that's what we want you to do after a diagnosis. And if we know that a certain activity, like for instance, smoking or really bad diet, increases the risk of colorectal cancer, then we don't want you to do that one afterwards. Want it kind of to avoid that one. So essentially, and the way I think about it as well is that if you still have some colorectal cancer cells in your body, and it's possible for anybody, right? You don't want to perturb those cells. You don't want those cells turning into faster growing cells. You don't want to kind of feed that system. And in fact, you want to have your immune system get stronger to be able to identify those cells and hopefully kill them off as well. So, and we know, for instance, exercise improves immune function and lots and lots of other things. So every day we're saying go and do something that's fun or social or do whatever you need to do to kind of get your heart rate up and put a smile on your face and so on. Even if you're power walking, starting with 5 minutes. And then you'll see here as well, not sitting for long periods of time. So I want to talk to you about why you don't want to sit too much. So that's the next part of this presentation is around sedentarism. We're also going to do a health survey right now. So this is kind of a fun survey that I want you to kind of mark in your mind. At the end of it, I'll give you all of this, the 6 health habits, so you don't have to memorize it now. But if in the last 7 days that you're able to get out there and do something that kind of got a slightly shorter breath, if you add it up to at least 150 minutes, the science shows that probably more is better. So you're probably trying to get to even 300 minutes a week, something that's fun and so on. More is better. Okay, sedentarism. So a sedentary behavior is if you're not expending too much energy, and essentially it means you're sitting, reclining, lying, and so on. And we're all at risk of this, right? That through our phones and our commuting and our watching TV and playing and reading and so on, we really are at risk of sitting for too long a period of time. And sitting at work, for instance. So how do we define sitting too much? Probably, if you're sitting 3 hours straight is probably not good for you. Definitely beyond 6 hours is not healthy. And so what I'm suggesting is that every 5 minutes on the hour, 5 on the hour, as you remember, 5 minutes on the hour, you want to get up and do something. Why is that true? Because the chemistry within your body actually changes. It's almost as if the muscles and the vessels and so on are going to secrete certain types of hormones that signal to the system that you're sick. And so it changes the fat and the sugar and puts you at risk of putting on weight and having diabetes and so on. And also you're at higher risk of actually having some clotting factors, meaning, a heart attack or a blood clot in the vein that could go to the lung, for instance. And we know as well your brain doesn't function as well as if you do this. So the idea is like the whole system is starting to slow down if you're just sitting, even if you're, actively emailing or, using your phone or like you think you're functioning high well, it's actually not good for you. So you need to kind of stretch and get up. So why am I saying this? Why am I so emphatic about that? So this was a study of 17,000 Canadians published in a high impact journal. 50% increase in all-cause mortality if for in sitting more and more and more. So for instance, if you have a 1% chance of dying in the next year, you'd have a 1.5% chance of dying in the next year, for instance. And that adds up. And whether, and you're actually seeing the RR as a relative risk in colon cancer increased 24% risk of developing colon cancer if you're sitting way too much, lung cancer 1.2, and endometrial cancer 1.3. And again, if you know something increases your risk of getting your particular type of cancer, then you want to avoid that afterwards. So even if you adjust for, like, I'm still working out, I'm still doing my strength training, I'm still doing my aerobic activity 30 minutes per day, but I'm sitting for too many hours, that's still a risk beyond just that. Cardiovascular disease, so you're at risk of a heart attack. Diabetes is much higher. Cancer overall is much higher. So it's clear it's not good for your body to have so much stillness there. So, and this is a kind of interesting study from the British Journal of Medicine. They're saying if you're doing that prolonged sitting all in a row, could take 21 minutes off of your life per hour there. Um, Smoking a cigarette could take 11 minutes off your life. Anyways, I'm not sure exactly how to convert this. This is a very interesting study. So they had the volunteers for a 9-hour study, and they all were able to get a meal replacement at hours 1, 4, and 6. So they're forced to kind of drink this drink. So they're all drinking the same thing. 1/3 of them were randomized to sitting. Like they just sat for 9 hours. 1/3 of them had 30 minutes of exercise at the start, and then they sat for 8.5 hours. And 1/3 of them were asked to stand up for about a minute and a half every 30 minutes. And then what they found was the guys that were asked to stand up and do a quick little walk every 30 minutes, their blood sugars were better, their insulin levels were better compared to the two other groups. Now, why is it so important that your blood sugars not kind of go up like that? It's because the body, in response, if you have that really sugary food and your blood sugars go up, what happens is your body tries to compensate to get the sugar into the cells quickly and releases these other hormones like insulin, like growth factor, that prime cells to turn over. They prime cancer cells to grow. It's why the diabetes has a risk factor and why the poor diet, one of the reasons why, having a sugary diet and sugars out of control put people at risk of cancer is because all those hormones are kind of feeding the system of producing cancer. So that's number one. Um, okay, so how do you sit less? I kind of like this. I like this kind of photo for a couple reasons. Obviously, she's at work and she's looking at her screen and so on, but she's also talking on the phone. And I have a habit. So, for instance, if I'm going to call someone back, one of my patients back, if I'm on the phone, I'm going to stand up. So that's my kind of rule of thumb, right? And it forces me. And sometimes I'm a little bit tired, and sometimes I don't do it. But on average, if I'm going to be on a phone call, I try to stand. So that's how I sit less. There are the various technologies now, right? Setting an alarm or your watch or and looking for those opportunities. Maybe the stand-up desk is the other thing I was trying to show on this one. Ritual standing while talking on the phone, looking for the stairs whenever possible. If you're going to have a meeting, maybe if it's not, you don't have to use too much of your intellect. Maybe like a little walking meeting could be helpful, and so on. Okay. So give yourself a point if you're actually doing this now, that you're thinking about trying to get up every 5 minutes on the hour. Not more than 2 hours of just like pure sitting. I guess the other suggestion I'd have is if you're having these kind of sedentary activities, like I'm going to watch a movie, and then I'm going to do email, and then I'm going to call my kids type thing. In between the kind of transition in between those activities, stand up, stretch, sweep the floor, put the dishes away, go for a little tiny walk outside if you can. Like just something so it kind of breaks up the activities and so that you don't kind of get the all in a row sitting. So give yourself a point if you're able to, stretch yourself. Okay. We also talk about this strength training. Strength training has benefits beyond aerobic exercise. So even if you aerobic exercise, you're doing your power walking, to do strength training. I didn't put it as part of the scientific background. To do strength training actually helps. And you're seeing here in our program on Mondays and Thursdays, people follow a video, right? And you wouldn't want to do necessarily what I'm doing there. And so you can see the modifications of Gabriella, who's the scientist, and my wife, who's doing the easier version of this, right? And so then as the weeks go by, you can go a little bit deeper and so on. So that's strength training twice per week, right? And so she's not getting right down on the floor. And even she could do that sitting in a chair, for instance, right? So this is a little bit of the oblique muscles. And then I'm using the harder version by taking my feet off the floor there, right? So part of the program, we get you elastic bands, use body weight type stuff. There's 4 levels of difficulty. You're just going to do the level. You like start out super slowly, super easy, and slowly you work your way forward. So it's really important to have good technique and to keep it safe. And 500 plus people later doing the programs, nobody's hurt themselves. No one's kind of broken a bone or had a heart attack or bonked their head during this time. So here are the ideas. This is some of the things. And again, if you're doing an air squat, for instance, you don't have to go very deep. For instance, you don't have to do the full front plank. You could just even do it off a chair. You can do the cat cow off the chair. So lots of ways to kind of modify and keep it safe. Okay, it is important though, right? So this is another way that you can actually change the biochemistry within your body, improve the heart health, the brain health, your function overall. So you're giving yourself a point if on average, twice per week, you're using 30 minutes of something. And that could be yoga. Yoga kind of qualifies because you're using pretty good core in that.
Isn't it funny what he's saying? Oh, it
In
says,
our
why am
program,
I signed in?
2 secs. I just want to
Why,
hear,
I'm here.
why are you, who's doing this?
Cassandra, can you just mute? And I'm happy to answer any questions during this time. So yeah, so people can just follow the program, follow the 2 videos there. So next is stress reduction, right? So it is stressful to have a cancer diagnosis, and there's a science to actually settling down your stressometer, your stress level. And so in the first levels of the program, we had some biofeedback, but we found out actually through a randomized trial that the biofeedback wasn't necessary, but we highly recommend you practicing a relaxation technique, teaching yourself to be more calm, more centered, so that you're kind of at that level more often. And when you do get flustered, because we're all going to get flustered and stressed, you're able to kind of come back home more quickly, more easily. So again, it's good science to say practicing 10 minutes per day doesn't have to be meditation, just something where you bring your attention to the kind of mindfulness, allow the stress response to decrease. Doing that 10 minutes per day for 6 months actually makes a real difference in terms of health and so on. Okay, again, if you're doing this, congratulations. It's the rarer person who's actually practicing this. I was doing this morning. I was trying to imagine that kind of sense of dropping, like dropping a tennis ball from one hand to the other hand. I was trying to allow my body to kind of relax. Oftentimes we're kind of holding ourselves tense all the time, and we can practice feeling more at peace, and that can come through more often. Okay, so then the next is obviously dietary recommendations. Eat food, mostly plants, not too much. So a whole food mostly plant-based diet. We're pushing that side. Again, we're not trying to make this perfectionistic. We're trying to just slowly have you integrate the healthier meals and foods over time. It's about a transformation over 6 months. You don't have to be perfect. Swapping out the unhealthy stuff for the healthier stuff, definitely decreasing red meat within the colorectal world. I talk about time restricted eating. Vitamin D, everybody should be on vitamin D, you Canadians, right? 1,000 to 2,000 international units per day. Vitamin D, I'm hammering it every day almost. Vitamin D. And then the other thing that we did is we created these cooking videos, once per week cooking videos. Gabriella is an amazing chef. I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I wash a mean dish. And so in these videos, she's teaching me how to make these plant-based meals based off her youth in Romania. So it's fun because I'm like the inept oncologist. She's like the guru, and she's kind of teaching me how to make these dishes. So it's fun. And then you can follow it or not and the rest of it. So, okay, this is the gestalt, the epiphany teaching that I want you to walk away with today. Something that's practical that you'll apply, today, if not this week. And that is this issue of ultra processed foods, or I like to call them ultra processed food like substances, because that's kind of what they are. They appear to be food, but they're actually not. Um, so how did this develop? Defining them, what are the health consequences? There's a really cool study around randomization between ultra processed food diet and healthy diet. And this is just generally some dietary advice as well. So, and I don't want to be too judgmental. The food industry is an industry that is there to make money, and it also has helped distribute the food to the people. It had a real purpose, decades ago. The issue is what's happening is they breaking down the healthy foods and then extracting elements or components of it and then putting those back into different types of ultra processed foods. And so then there's this a whole loss of the benefits of the micronutrients, right? The food comes in what they call a matrix, meaning it's just not like the micronutrient itself. It's the whole thing. And a plant has like 1,000 chemicals in it. And those chemicals are interacting and how the fiber interacts with the bacteria in your gut, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole bunch of reasons why this extraction process and then just putting in a few little micronutrients is not working. So, and then the whole issue of like getting the food out to people and having it preserved and maximizing profit, it really is a setup for problem. Yes, it's cheaper, and some people can't afford, the more whole-based foods. But really, I think this is a societal problem. So the profits have created it such that the industry wants to create foods that are addictive. What's addictive? It's sugar, salt, and fat, and especially soft and energy dense. These foods go in quickly. Like it's almost like into your system before your brain even knows that you're eating food, type thing. And so they're trying to maximize profit. And then it's whole kind of marketing around feeling good, et cetera, et cetera. And this iterative cycles of design and testing and feedback from the focus groups and more marketing and market share. And like this has happened over decades. And so therefore that's what we have in terms of food swamps and food deserts, essentially. So in the early 1990s, there was a Brazilian researcher who was puzzled as to why there was a sudden epidemic of obesity in Brazil. And it was essentially, it was the same, they were eating the same foods, but then the ultra processed foods were coming in as the version of those foods. And so Guerrera, I think was his name, he started this very, I would say, kind of a gross or an approximation classification, because it's really like a spectrum. It's not like suddenly the ultra processed foods, come into place. And actually, the other thing I want to say is there's nothing really wrong with the processed foods that they're showing here. It's when you get into this category of ultra processed foods where the substances are being isolated and put back together and so on. And the design is just all around consumption. So top three categories, good. So what is it? We're talking about many ingredients within a food product. There's like extracts, chemicals you can't recognize. As soon as you read the ingredient list and you're like, I don't recognize that chemical, you know you're into that. And it's the issue of the emulsifiers and preservatives as well. Emulsifier essentially it's like your laundry detergent. It's there. One part of it latches onto the dirt. The other part of it latches onto the water and pulls the dirt off your clothes, right? So that's the emulsifier. The same thing is happening within your gut. It's like one part is on the mucus or the cells. The other part is in the lining. It's like ripping some of the lining of the gut. And I'm sorry if I'm being a bit dramatic around that, but that's, it leads to kind of leaky gut syndrome in those circumstances. So you wouldn't find it there. You can't make this food exactly yourself. And sadly, almost everything you're seeing in the supermarket in terms of the processed stuff is ultra processed, right? So the supermarket breads, the breakfast cereals, ding, 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 the kids are eating that. Most of the yogurts, energy bars, anything wrapped in plastic it's all, if you just have a look as you go down the aisle. And so from Dr. Kratz, all of these extra elements, emulsifiers, hydrogen oils, hydrogenized proteins, firming agents, they're all creating this chemical mix that our guts are not evolved to take. So interesting. I like this slide as well. It's like, I don't think we should be looking at this top area, like how much fat, how much protein, how much sodium, et cetera, et cetera. That's not as important as the ingredient list here. What's this? Azodicarbonamide. Wow, what does that do? What does that do to my body? Right. And so that's an ultra processed food. And then the Canadians are actually a little bit more progressive on that. They clearly list what the highly processed foods are and so on. And so it's a majority of stuff that you would imagine. And then I took a picture from one of the big box stores, one of their products. So I think it was an ice cream product. And then they have the list here. And I like their at least they're honest about it. It contains bioengineered food ingredients. Yeah, maybe great price guaranteed, but I would argue not great quality, right? This is not a healthy product for our guts in lots of ways. I won't talk about the microbiome. I think you'll have me back in a year's time. I'll talk about the microbiome. So the issue is currently we're probably sitting about 60% of our calories as a nation is coming through ultra processed food. That's way too much. And then really, it's even more concerning that probably 75% of our kids' caloric intake is coming through ultra processed foods. And we know that that's associated with anxiety and ADHD. I'm sure of it in my mind now, depression, obesity, diabetes. There is a societal problem right now. You might say, well, it's because fruits and vegetables are too expensive. Well, I think we can do better in terms of distribution, but there all are also very healthy and cheap foods, lentils, beans, legumes. Those are 10 out of 10 foods that are at a tenth of the cost probably of a steak and so on. Why am I harping at this so hard? It affects our mental health. I'm sure of it. I know the days when I'm eating well, I'm feeling better, I'm thinking more clearly, and so on. The ultra processed foods put us at risk of cancer, of being overweight, neurodegenerative disease like Alzheimer's, many other medical conditions. We need to eat healthier. So I'm hoping people can take that away, start reading the ingredients, right? And then just try to choose wherever possible those healthy alternatives. And you slowly empower yourself. You slowly gain the knowledge. You slowly change your meals over. Okay, so this is fascinating. This is such a good trial. So they took 20 overweight adults, so no like real medical condition, and they kind of trapped them in the hospital, trapped them in their facility for 28 days so they could really measure, make sure they're doing exactly what they're doing. Half of them started out on a healthy diet for 2 weeks. Half of them started out an ultra processed food diet for 2 weeks, and then they switched over at the 2 week point. And so then they were measuring their intake and so on. The unhealthy diet had 80% of the unhealthy diet had 80% of the calories through UPF. Healthy diet had 80% of the calories with whole foods, right? So we're not going to avoid them completely. And then they also matched the diets, right? So they added some fiber to the ultra processed foods. They added some sugar to the healthy side, just make sure that there was a kind of an equivalence. The fiber and so on was equivalent between the two diets. Like you can imagine like an ultra processed blueberry muffin versus the same muffin made with like the really good ingredients. So that was an example of how the diets were matched. Interestingly, oh, sorry, let me just go over one more point. Calorie density was the same. Now that's a false that doesn't reflect the real world because on average, the ultra processed foods are much more calorie dense. And so they were even trying to balance this out unrealistically to kind of favor ultra processed foods. So both groups felt the same degree of like, oh, this hits the spot, right? I'm feeling good about this. I like this food. They enjoyed the food. They were feeling as full during that time. But the ultra processed food group ate 500 calories more every day. They didn't even know it. 2,900 versus 2,400. They had gained 2 pounds, whereas the healthy group had actually lost 2 pounds in 2 weeks by eating well. Why is there weight gain on this side? Well, I mean, I think the science is developing, but essentially, with the food being so soft and easy to digest, I think it gets into the system more quickly than the brain can actually understand and expect. And so, therefore, it ends up people that overeat in that circumstance. It could be also that all the chemicals are interfering with the appetite device, et cetera. So it could be the gut microbiome, which is the bacteria. We don't know actually. Okay, so that's the very, very long explanation to say, are you eating your fruits and vegetables? I mean, that's a whole other talk. I guess I'm running late enough that I won't go through all this. But I guess the one point is, on average, you want to be eating 30 or more different fruits and vegetables or spices, i.e., the plants, nuts, seeds, legumes, all that stuff. 30 different plant-based foods per week. Like if you add up the different types of fruits and veggies and plants and all that, does it add up to a total of 30 different types? Anyways, you get a point if you're eating 5+ servings of fruits and vegetables today. I'm going to talk about time restricted eating. I think that's really important as well.
And
As the
Rob,
last,
I will just note we are getting kind of tight on time here, so just a
oh,
couple more minutes, okay?
okay.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll just finish with this then. The time restricted eating. Thanks, Cassandra, for that. So time restricted eating, not just what you eat, but when you eat makes a difference because our metabolism changes essentially when we're hungry. And so once your liver and the system is drained of the sugars, you start to develop ketones, which is different than a ketogenic diet. And ketones improve all sorts of cell function. They kind of mop up the inflammatory factors, the little bits. They eat other cells, including cancer cells and so on. And so this allows your gut to repair. So I'm going to take about 1 more minute to explain time-restricted eating and why it's beneficial. And then I'll just pitch the PEP program as the last thing right now. So the issue is that our cells are actually synced there. What we want to do is to eat during the day and don't eat at night. And probably you want to go for a couple of hours prior to going to sleep and waiting for at least an hour after you wake up. Uh, if you wake up, you can still drink your tea and coffee, just no calories with that. There are different ways to do that. I'm not going to go through that part of it. You can train yourself, so slowly getting better at creating the ketogenesis with time. Yes, you are going to feel hungry a little bit as you slowly train your body to go through that kind of hungry phase, but it only lasts for a few weeks. It's remarkable how we will adapt there. And this is why we do this, right? So it actually allows the tissues to heal. It boosts immune function. Our sugars, which I talked about not getting the sugar spikes, are better. If it helps to prevent cancer, we want to do it afterwards, stimulates brain function. So I think that's it. Do you want me to do the survey? I'll give or
Why
no.
don't why don't we leave time for questions? Because I think
Okay.
our audience is going to have some questions, and
Okay.
I'd like them to have the opportunity to chat with you before you sign off.
Okay. Just to say now, CRAN is sponsoring CancerPEP. You can see in the CRAN main webpage under the patient programs, the last tab there is the Cancer Patient Empowerment Program. You can learn about it. We would love to have you join us. And I'm like so appreciative that CRAN is sponsoring 50 people who've had a colorectal cancer diagnosis coming into the program. We've had a lot of success. I didn't have a chance to show that it improves mental health and physical function and all the rest of it. We just know it works and it works well, and that we're super appreciative of CRAN for sponsoring this. So I'll finish there. Thanks, Cassandra. Made my life easier.